Hey, this is John Carlos, and I am here with a look at the 6-scale figure of Ghostface from Sideshow. Well, it looks like the knife slid from over here. This figure stand looks pretty easy to assemble, so let's just go ahead and do that right now. Thank goodness this figure comes with a figure stand. One thing I read about online is that a lot of people's figures had really loose joints, especially in the chest. My figure in particular has really loose ankle joints. I've got to bend the figure back at the knees just to get him to kind of stand upright. And luckily the hood the robe kind of hides all that. Speaking of the hood, one of the things that really surprised me about this figure is the head in general. First of all, I just want to show you guys the head underneath, which is not sculpted, but just like a cloth kind of head that's kind of rocking the mask. This cloth hood, you would expect to maybe have a wire in it, and yet it doesn't. But what's surprising is how well it works without the wire in it. You can kind of have it resting up this way. Something about just maybe the way the fabric holds, or the fact that there's a fabric head, and maybe those two pieces of fabric kind of hold each other in place, but whichever kind of position you want to put it in. If you want to have it hang down kind of low, or like semi-low, it kind of stays wherever you want it to kind of rest. I'm surprised by how well the hood kind of holds its position and shape. I'm really digging that. Also, the mask, it's worth noting, is a good sculpt. The paint within the mouth and nose is good, but you can see there's a little section right there in the eyes where the black paint isn't fully painted. That's a bummer. Only because, considering this price point, there isn't like a lot of sculpt. There isn't a lot of detailed fabric or outfits to speak of. So maybe paint one of the more important things perfectly. But at least there's not smeared paint everywhere. Here's a closer look at the boots, which look pretty damn good in my opinion. The bottom of the outfit is flaring outward. It's swooping outward. Not the worst. Not the greatest. Here's a look at the little sleevey danglies, which I think look pretty good. This figure comes with a belt, which as far back as Ghostface has been a thing in the 90s, not necessarily featured in the films, but Ghostface as an entity, even way back with like the McFarlane Toys action figure, I think that featured a belt. So I'm just going to take that off, which does help pinch the costume a bit, so that you can see the boots better. And I know without it, it hangs a little bit lower. And some people might complain that when you've got the figure fully rested at the shoulders, that maybe the robe goes down too long, but I think it still looks fine. If I bend them at the knees for like an action pose, it'll definitely be a problem, but I'd rather have it be slightly long than have that little belt, cinching him in the middle there. The figure comes with a small handful of accessories, including these knives, a regular and a bloody, and I like that they include the little black line going around the bottom. That's a nice touch. We also have some open palmed gloved hands. We have a pair of grip hands for gripping the knives, and probably one of my favorite inclusions is this little grip hand, which I think is pretty cool because it allows you to get this pose. I mean, come on, this just looks super cool. The range of motion for all the articulation actually really allows you to get the figure into some pretty dynamic, cool-looking attack poses. Even just hiking up his robe so I can bend his knees a little bit and crunching the chest forward makes all the difference. I mean, you can really kind of bring it forward, use the stand to support maybe the weight, but the neck articulation, I mean, you can really get some really cool kind of moments out of this. Besides the dynamic poses, though, this thing also just works as something a little more stoic. Just the fist, the head, especially if you have it on a slightly higher shelf. I think this figure looks really great from lower angles. Also, just the range that you can get with the shoulders that kind of hinge forward and back. I mean, that to me has some nice presence. I should also point out that you can get so much personality out of some of these joints. I mean, to me, just bringing those shoulders forward, and then just a little bit of a head tilt makes all the difference to me. I should also just show you guys that the figure itself, it's just like a black sleeve that meets like a plastic arm, and just sort of meets there. You don't need to have, like, you know, skin underneath, especially if you're raising the arm at all. He's just got some basic black pants, and yeah, that's it. Nothing else really to speak of. Black pants, black plastic arms, and just, you know, really useful shoulder and neck joints. There's a joint at the base of the neck, and then also the top of the neck where it meets the head, which really can get you to not just tilt side to side, but also kind of lean forward, you know, kind of look down. If you're doing a more runny action pose, that head kind of leaning forward in mid-run could look really cool. And yeah, I noticed that little mark on the side of the mask. It's not great, but it's not a deal breaker. I presume everyone who's watching this video has already seen Scream 2022, otherwise known as Scream 5. If you haven't, I'm about to spoil something in a few seconds, but when I saw it in theaters and I saw Ghostface strike this pose after they killed Dewey, I thought, man, if I ever get that 6-scale figure, I want to strike that pose. It's simple, but very effective, the way they're holding the knives. Unfortunately, this Ghostface outfit doesn't open up in the middle, so I can't recreate it exactly with like the bulletproof vest and the kind of open robe, but still, I think this looks pretty cool. Now, putting the figure on the figure stand and effectively putting the stand up the robe, I was concerned that the robe would really kind of show the pole, and the pole would be sticking out, and it doesn't really show any noticeable like bulge unless you really lean the figure far forward. Also, you know, the little balls on that prong that like cup at the legs, I was concerned that if this robe was too tight with the figure stand, you might see those little balls poking through, but they are not poking through, so that's nice. This figure is nice. It retails for $210. Well, it did at the time of its release. It's a little bit harder to find now, and I resisted it when it first came out because $210 for, you know, no real face sculpt, no detailed costume, very little accessories, that seems steep. But as I kept feeling like I wanted a Ghostface figure in my collection, and after the newest movie came out, it really made me decide, okay, let's do this, let's get it. And I'm satisfied with it, but I'm a pretty big Scream fan. Your mileage may vary, taking in the factors of you know, what it does and doesn't come with, but I am very happy with this. Speaking of what it does and doesn't come with, I'm also happy with the accessories we get. I've never been one of those people that thinks Ghostface needs to come with more accessories. If you've noticed the NECA figures, if you've noticed this Sideshow figure, it doesn't come with a phone, it doesn't come with any like alternate heads like a Mickey head or a Roman head, and that's because Ghostface is licensed to Dimension back in the days, and I guess now Paramount. Had Dimension created their own original character, you'd be seeing stuff that's sold as Scream and not sold as Ghostface. If it was a Scream figure, maybe they'd have character-specific heads and it would come with a phone, even though Ghostface never uses a phone on screen in the movies. Like, yeah, we know he uses a phone, but I've never desired Ghostface to come with a phone because, like, you never see him just, like, holding a phone up to his head and talking to someone. It's always the other side of the conversation we're seeing. Maybe if they made a scary movie figure, like that Ghostface you see using a phone, but I'm happy with what it comes with. I don't need Ghostface to come with a phone. I don't need alternate heads, and even if I wanted them, we're not going to get them because it's Fun World who licenses out Ghost World to be used, and this is technically a Ghostface figure, not a Scream figure. Having said all that, man, does this look great on the shelf. I think it looks great, and I love the posability. The simple black robe really does allow you to, within the figure's articulation, hit some great poses that I think lay on this little black robe, and they never, you know, lay in a weird way. The arms look good, the little flabby things look good. I love the hood, really like hangs in whichever direction I need it to. I love it. I love this figure. If you're a Scream fan, what's not to love here, really, aside from, you know, the price. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this figure, and if you want to be up to date with all my latest reviews, be sure to click subscribe.